March 25th, 1983, Pasadena Civic Auditorium, California. Motown 25, yesterday, today, forever. Michael Jackson stands alone on stage, wearing a black sequin jacket, white gloves sparkling under the lights. 50 million people watching on television. He's just finished performing Billie Jean, one of the greatest vocal performances of his career. The crowd is already on their feet, screaming, losing their minds. Then Michael does something no one has ever seen before on national television, something that will be replayed millions of times, studied frame by frame, imitated by children and adults worldwide for the next 40 years. He moves backward while appearing to walk forward. Smooth, effortless, impossible. The moonwalk. 10 seconds. That's all it takes. 10 seconds of movement that defy logic, that look like magic, that transform Michael Jackson from a pop star into a cultural phenomenon. The crowd erupts. People jump out of their seats. Backstage, celebrities are screaming. Fred Astaire calls Michael the next morning to say he's never seen anything like it. The performance becomes the most talked about moment in television history. But what the world didn't know was that Michael almost didn't perform at all, that he'd created the moonwalk only weeks earlier, that he'd argued with his family about doing the show, that those 10 seconds were the result of obsessive perfectionism, years of studying the greatest dancers in history, and the desperate need to prove he was more than just another Motown artist. This is a story of the Motown 25 moonwalk, the 10 seconds that made Michael Jackson immortal. In early 1983, Motown Records was planning a massive television special celebrating 25 years of the legendary label. They wanted to reunite all the great Motown acts, the Supremes, Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, and of course, the Jackson 5. Berry Gordy, Motown's founder, personally called Michael Jackson to ask him to perform. It should have been an easy yes. Michael had started his career at Motown as a child. The Jackson 5 had given Motown some of its biggest hits. This was a celebration of his roots. But Michael said no. By 1983, Michael Jackson was no longer a Motown artist. He'd left the label in 1975, signing with Epic Records. More importantly, he was in the middle of the Thriller phenomenon. The album had been released in November 1982 and was already breaking records, with Billie Jean climbing the charts. Michael didn't want to be seen as a nostalgia act. He didn't want to be grouped with his brothers as the Jackson 5, the child stars singing bubblegum pop. He was an adult artist now, a serious musician making groundbreaking music. Going back to Motown felt like going backward. But Berry Gordy was persistent. He called Michael repeatedly, appealing to his loyalty, his history, his connection to Motown. Michael's mother, Catherine, also pressured him, saying it would be disrespectful to refuse. Finally, Michael agreed, but with conditions. Yes, he would perform with the Jackson 5 singing the old hits, but he also wanted to perform one of his new solo songs, Billie Jean. Motown executives hesitated. This was a Motown special, not a platform for Epic Records artists to promote their current work. But Michael was firm, both or nothing. Eventually, they agreed. What they didn't know was that Michael had already decided if he was going to perform Billie Jean, he was going to do something that would steal the entire show, something no one had ever seen before on national television, something that would make it impossible for anyone to see him as just a Jackson 5 member ever again. Michael had been working on a new dance move. Not really new, street dancers had been doing variations of it for years. Marcel Marceau, the famous mime, had performed similar illusions. James Brown had done a version. But Michael had perfected it, smoothed it, made it his own. He called it the backslide. The world would call it the moonwalk. In the weeks leading up to Motown 25, Michael rehearsed obsessively. He practiced the moonwalk for hours every day, perfecting the angle of his body, the position of his feet, the smoothness of the glide. He knew this performance would be seen by tens of millions of people. It had to be flawless. He also designed his outfit specifically for the performance. The black sequin jacket caught the light, making every movement visible. The black pants with the white socks created a visual contrast that emphasized his footwork. The single white glove, which would become his signature, drew the eye to his hand gestures. Everything was calculated, everything was planned. Michael Jackson didn't do anything by accident. March 25, 1983. The Motown 25 special is being taped at the Pasadena Civic Auditorium. The show is a star-studded event. Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Smokey Robinson, all the Motown legends. Early in the show, the Jackson 5 perform a medley of their classic hits. I Want You Back, ABC, The Love You Save. They sound great. The harmony's tight, the choreography sharp. But it's nostalgia. It's a trip down memory lane, nothing more. Then, near the end of the show, Michael Jackson takes the stage alone. He's wearing the now iconic outfit. Black sequin jacket, black pants with white socks, black loafers, white glove. He looks cool, mysterious, different from the bubblegum Jackson 5 persona. The music starts. Billie Jean, that unmistakable bass line. The crowd recognizes it immediately and erupts, and Michael begins to perform. His voice is perfect, powerful, emotional, controlled. He's hitting every note, every inflection, making the studio recording sound flat by comparison. But it's the dancing that's mesmerizing. Michael moves like he's defying physics, spins that seem to go on forever, poses that snap into place with impossible precision. Every movement sharp, deliberate, perfectly timed to the music. The crowd is already screaming, already on their feet. Backstage, celebrities are crowding around monitors, watching in awe. Diana Ross has tears in her eyes. Berry Gordy is smiling, realizing he's witnessing something historic. Then, about 3 minutes into the performance, Michael stops singing. The music continues, but he's not at the microphone anymore. He's center stage, hands on his hips, feet shoulder-width apart. And he does it. He appears to walk forward, but he's moving backward, smooth, effortless, like he's gliding on ice. The moonwalk. The crowd loses its mind. People scream, jump, point, try to understand what they're seeing. Some think it's camera trickery. Others think he's on wheels, but everyone knows they're witnessing something they've never seen before. Michael does the moonwalk for about 10 seconds, gliding backward, then spinning, then striking a pose on his toes, then doing it again. Each glide is smoother than the last, each movement more impossible. Then he goes into the rest of the choreography. More spins, more freezes, more movements that shouldn't be physically possible. He finishes the song, strikes a final pose, and the place explodes. Standing ovation, people screaming his name, complete pandemonium. Backstage, Michael is immediately surrounded by celebrities congratulating him, but Michael, being Michael, is already criticizing himself. "I messed up the spin," he tells his manager. "The second moonwalk wasn't smooth enough. I can do it better." Everyone else thinks he just gave the performance of the decade. Michael thinks he made mistakes. When Motown 25 aired on May 16, 1983, the Michael Jackson performance became an instant cultural phenomenon. The next morning, every newspaper in America had pictures of Michael doing the moonwalk. Entertainment Tonight led with it. MTV played it on repeat. The performance was replayed on news shows, talk shows, morning shows, everywhere. Kids started trying to moonwalk in their living rooms, on playgrounds, in school hallways. Dance studios added moonwalk classes. Dancers studied the tape frame by frame, trying to figure out the mechanics. Within weeks, everyone in America was attempting to glide backward. Fred Astaire, the legendary dancer, called Michael the morning after the broadcast. "You're a hell of a mover," Astaire told him. "Man, you really put them on their asses last night." From Fred Astaire, a god of dance, this was the ultimate validation. Gene Kelly, another dance legend, also reached out. These were Michael's idols, the men he'd studied obsessively, and they were calling to praise him. But the moonwalk did more than make Michael famous for a dance move. It fundamentally changed how people saw him. Before Motown 25, Michael Jackson was a successful pop star, the lead singer of the Jackson 5, a talented kid who'd grown into a talented adult. Thriller was selling well, but it hadn't yet become the cultural juggernaut it would become. After Motown 25, Michael Jackson was a phenomenon. He wasn't just a singer or dancer, he was an artist, an innovator, a once-in-a-generation talent. The moonwalk proved he was doing things no one else could do. Thriller sales exploded. The album, which had been selling well, suddenly went supernova. It climbed back to #1 on the charts and stayed there for months. Eventually, it would become the best-selling album of all time, with over 70 million copies worldwide. The Thriller music video, which premiered 8 months later, benefited enormously from the Motown 25 momentum. People were hungry for more Michael Jackson magic. When Thriller delivered a 14-minute horror movie musical hybrid, it cemented Michael's status as the king of pop. The white glove became iconic. Michael started wearing it in all his performances, and it became as associated with him as his music. Kids wanted white gloves. Costume shops couldn't keep them in stock. The black jacket with sequins became a fashion statement. Designers started copying the look. Michael's entire aesthetic, the military-inspired jackets, the high-water pants showing white socks, the fedora, became his signature style imitated worldwide. But perhaps most importantly, the Motown 25 performance established Michael Jackson as the greatest performer of his generation. Elvis Presley had died in 1977. The Beatles had broken up. There was a void for a single artist who could dominate global pop culture. After Motown 25, that artist was clearly Michael Jackson. The moonwalk became more than a dance move. It became a symbol of Michael Jackson's genius, his innovation, his ability to do things that seemed impossible. Every performer who came after Michael attempted to moonwalk at some point. Usher, Chris Brown, Justin Timberlake, entire generations of pop stars studied that Motown 25 performance, trying to capture even a fraction of Michael's magic. The move itself entered popular culture permanently. It's been referenced in movies, TV shows, commercials, cartoons. It's been performed by presidents, athletes, actors. It's one of the most recognizable pieces of choreography in history. But here's the fascinating thing. Michael Jackson didn't invent the moonwalk. He never claimed to. Street dancers had been doing variations of it for years. The backslide had existed in various forms long before Michael. What Michael did was perfect it and present it to the world in the most spectacular way possible. He took something that existed in underground dance culture and made it mainstream, iconic, unforgettable. That was his genius, not necessarily inventing new things, but taking existing elements and elevating them to art. Michael himself was always quick to credit the dancers who influenced him. He talked about learning from street performers, studying James Brown and Jackie Wilson, watching Fred Astaire movies obsessively as a child. He understood he was part of a lineage of great performers, and he respected that history. But what made Michael different was the obsessive perfectionism he brought to everything. Other people could moonwalk, but no one could do it as smoothly, as effortlessly, as magically as Michael Jackson. He practiced until his feet bled. He rehearsed until every angle was perfect. He studied himself on video, critiquing every movement, never satisfied. That Motown 25 performance, 10 seconds of moonwalking that changed everything, was the result of thousands of hours of practice, study, and dedication. It looked effortless because Michael had worked so hard to make it look effortless. In his later years, Michael rarely talked about the moonwalk in interviews. By then, it was so associated with him that it almost embarrassed him. He'd moved on to other innovations, other performances, but he understood its significance. He knew that those 10 seconds had transformed his career. When Michael Jackson died on June 25, 2009, every news outlet in the world showed the Motown 25 moonwalk footage. It was the image that defined him for billions of people. A young Michael, impossibly smooth, gliding backward across a stage, defying physics and expectations. That performance became his epitaph. Not his albums, not his music videos, not his controversies or scandals, just 10 seconds of pure magic that no one could explain, but everyone could appreciate. Today, 40 years after Motown 25, the moonwalk remains as iconic as ever. New generations discover it, attempt it, share it. It's timeless, it's universal. It's proof that sometimes 10 seconds is all you need to become immortal. Michael Jackson understood something profound. In the age of television and mass media, a single moment, if it's perfect, if it's magical, if it's unforgettable, can change everything. One performance, one move, one decision to say yes to a show he almost refused. March 25, 1983. Michael Jackson moonwalked for 10 seconds, and the world never looked at him the same way again. That's the power of perfection. That's the power of magic. That's the power of Michael Jackson. If this story made you think about perfection, innovation, and how a single moment can define a legacy, subscribe to Hidden Legend Stories. Leave a comment. Can you moonwalk? What's your favorite Michael Jackson performance? Did Motown 25 change how you saw him? Next time, we'll explore another legend whose single moment of brilliance changed everything. Until then, remember, magic isn't invented, it's perfected. The King of Pop. Forever.